My gosh. So it's funny too that like like Joe Biden was planning on like his whole thing was like, I'm going to get Republicans to work with me on stuff. I'm going to get them to work with me on stuff. And like not only that, but like people in his own party aren't even doing it. And now they want to put together this commission and like they're going to like filibuster this and they're not even going to have any response to it. That was one of the things that I kind of supported them pushing this commission, because like if they were smart, they could totally like really hurt the Republican Party with that. They could really hurt the conservative movement, I think, with normies who really were genuinely turned off by that kind of shit. And they could drag out these hearings like the way that conservatives did with Benghazi, right? And just keep dragging out these hearings and embarrassing people and illuminating all stuff. Who knew what and when, like who was in touch with these organizers. Like you could really, like if you wanted to do this in a partisan way, you could really hurt the Republican Party and like prevent them from probably taking power. But it's just like they don't view things that way. I think they think it would be too mean to do that. So even if they do end up doing this commission, it's going to be like, well, you know, we don't want to be too mean about like throwing around all these accusations or whatever. So it's like, I don't know, it's probably going to lead to nothing. I don't know. Benghazi ain't going away. Exactly. I mean, this is a pretty serious thing that the United States president, the boss of the Republican Party and the conservative movement, incited this like fucking riot at the Capitol that almost got a bunch of legislators killed. That's a pretty big deal. Like they could probably do something with that if they really wanted to, but it doesn't really seem like they want to all that much. Hey, what's up? All right, I lost. Dude with the nose. Hello. What's up? Sorry, I had a brain freeze there. Bret Hart was right about the U.S. in 97. That's right. And as you asked me, too, Bret Hart's you asked me if he was a hero, and absolutely, Bret Hart's my all-time favorite guy. My all-time favorite pro wrestler. I remember watching WrestleMania 10 in 94 live on pay-per-view. And Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, the first match on the card. One of the greatest wrestling matches of all time. And then Bret Hart later goes on to win the world title from Yokozuna later on that night. What's your opinion on homophobic people being secretly closeted? I don't know. I don't really have an opinion about that. It seems to be something that kind of comes out fairly often with a lot of these like right-wing guys. But also I think there's something kind of problematic about suggesting that every single person that's homophobic, like that's the reason. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on that. It does seem to be a trend that often happens with these like evangelical Christian types. I've experienced so many manly men kind of dudes in the moment they're alone. They're like literally down to fuck. Yeah, I imagine so. I mean, a lot of that time, you know, with any of that stuff, a lot of the time it's projection, you know, or like feelings of like guilt or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, Red Scary, the Obama quote is really painful. Institutional constraints kept him from commenting on killings of black Americans by police. Yeah, he sucks. He fucking sucks. And I did a tweet about this. I don't know if you saw it, but like, you know, the Ferguson protests happened under Obama, and those were like violently disrupted by cops with military tanks and fucking assault weapons, and like all that shit happened to Obama. Like Black Lives Matter, the whole movement started under Obama, and if he was really cared about that stuff, he could have like helped spin that and nurture that into an electoral movement that would like help liberals and help Democrats, but they don't believe in that too. They want to side with the cops instead of that. So the idea that was because of institutional constraints is fucking ridiculous. I mean, that started off right at the beginning of his presidency, when that Harvard professor got assaulted outside of his own goddamn house by a cop Obama said, "Oh, they acted stupidly," I think. And then because there's of course this bad faith reaction to those words, instead of just being like, "Fuck you," he did act stupidly. I don't care. He was like, "Oh, no, but let me be clear. I love the police. Blue Lives Matter. And when I said he acted stupidly, what I meant was we just need to all come together over a nice beer in the garden, and that's how we're going to work out our problems." And it's like, that really set the tone for the whole Obama presidency, didn't it? That really set the whole tone. They've barely gone after the legislators who cheered it on. It's one of the lib things that leftists are annoyed by that I'm actively on board with going after. Yeah, I agree, Rudy Prospero. That's it. I mean, I said that at the time when it happened. You fucking, yeah, go after the people that helped egg that on. Like, this isn't a game. They were pretty much trying to cheer on a coup. All that shit about 1776, like, there's people in the conservative movement in the Republican Party that they really did, I believe, think that that was going to be a legitimate, like, they were going to actually overturn the election results. Maybe you can use that against them to hurt them somehow. I mean, that's, you know, I'm not a political genius or anything, but when people kind of openly try to overthrow the government and like inspire, like egg on and inspire like a mob to fucking overturn the election results, maybe you should use that against them somehow and try and hurt them with it. But they're like, oh no, it would be too against norms. People would get too mad. People get too mad at us. Conservative media would get too mad at us if we were to actually do that. So, and it's like, okay, well. So America's just headed full on right off a cliff towards one party rule, minority rule. They're laying the groundwork now. They're rolling back all those like voting rights laws. No one's doing anything to stop it. They're going to lose the Senate regardless, so they're not going to be able to pass any legislation. I don't know. The Democrats don't seem to be doing anything about it. They don't seem to care all that much. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know what you're supposed to do. Or gotta drive. Okay, Prague Dragon, be safe. No Twitch while you're driving. That's not good. And they're united on the new Cold War. That's right. They just passed the Endless Frontier Act. That sounds pretty fucking ominous, doesn't it? The Endless Frontier Act. Oh my goodness. That's so fucking disturbing. No troubling connotations there at all. What's funny about this stuff that we're talking about, though, in the January 6th stuff, and about how they don't seem to, like, want to do anything, is that there are, like, actual sort of, like, Democratic aligned media people who have always are making apologizing for the Democrats, and always making excuses and always doing, and even them, they're like, what is this? What are you doing? What are we doing here? Why are they, even they're starting to freak out about the filibuster and all this shit. And they're kind of going like, they've built entire careers off of like unequivocally supporting the Democrats no matter what they do. And even some of these types are starting to be like, what the fuck? Why aren't you doing anything? Why aren't you doing anything about this? It's pretty amazing to see. Jesus. Bimbo loves himbo. What the hell? Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. What a strange place, Texas. I'm pretty sure listen, I'm not a fucking doctor. I'm like 90% sure that is not what a fetus looks like 14 days from conception. I don't want to like speak too authoritatively about something that I don't know totally about. My understanding of like biology is this is not accurate. Like 14 days after conception, you don't have a fetus that like looks like a tiny little like person. Why does the baby have a full set of straight white teeth? It's exactly the right. I don't think that's anatomically accurate at all. I don't think that's anatomically sound. Let me find some, because Brian Butler from Crooked Media, he's one of the guys that's like, he's starting to freak out about this shit too. See, they can't pass this. They can't pass this commission because the Republicans are blocking it. And you have like Joe Manchin and Sinema and Dianne Feinstein being like, we can't change the rules. So it's like they can't even. They control all three houses of Congress in the United States, all three branches of the government, and they can't even put together a fucking commission to study the potential coup that almost happened, that we all watched on live TV. It's actually pretty amazing. So it is kind of funny to see like Democratic lifers like this start to be like, what is going on here? Let me see if I can find the tweet that I was referencing. I was looking for it and I already kind of forgot what it was, so.
Chris Coons of Delaware. Senator Coons, you just heard Congresswoman Dean right there on the necessity of a 9/11 commission. You agree?
I do. George, this was a remarkable week, a powerful week. And I think the House managers, obviously Congresswoman Dean and Congressman Raskin, and a very talented team put on an incredibly compelling and powerful case. But there's still more evidence that the American people need and deserve to hear. And a 9/11 commission is a way to make sure that we secure the Capitol going forward and that we lay bare the record of just how responsible and how abjectly violating of his constitutional oath President Trump really was.
They really did shit themselves when they won those two Georgia seats.
You just heard Congresswoman Dean right there on the necessity of a 9/11 commission.
So they all agree they need this commission, but now the Republicans are blocking the commission. So you can abolish the filibuster. And it's so funny too that they're talking about maybe abolishing the filibuster for this and not, giving people health care or like raising the minimum wage, the PRO Act, these things that would like actually help people. But like this is the thing that's really getting them to freak out. You won't even change the filibuster over this 9/11 commission thing? What? Democrats suck on purpose, change my mind. I'm not going to try and change your mind. Absolutely not. It really does seem obvious to me. I was willing to like take a little time to see, because it seemed like some people within the Democratic Party establishment kind of understood the stakes and understood that if they don't like do something substantial, they're going to lose power. So even from like a self-serving, even a completely like cynical self-serving idea of like, we need to do something or we will not have power anymore. So I thought maybe they might start to get that. And like, they've proposed a bunch of great stuff. They proposed a bunch of really good stuff. The PRO Act, this like family act that's going to put money in the pockets of like, or the bank accounts of like people that have kids. They've proposed a whole bunch of really good stuff. This big infrastructure thing that would probably do a lot of good. And it doesn't seem to have like any intention to actually like meaningfully try and make these things happen. It really does seem like it's all theater. But that's the thing. It's not theater for the Republicans. It's not theater for the conservative movement. They're literally trying to like ensure that they can like have like permanent minority rule right now. Like I honestly don't know if it's even ever going to be possible for the Democratic Party to hold all three branches of the US government the way that they are now ever again. I really think probably this next year is probably the last time that's going to be an even a remote possibility. And if they just do nothing with that, then it's kind of like, well, I don't know. It's not looking too good, America. It is not looking too good. We got a pretty serious climate change deadline right now coming up pretty quickly. We're seeing the fucking consequences of climate change happening right now, currently. And in order to have any hope of preventing that, there needs to be like a drastic effort, almost unprecedented in human history, to start pushing back against this. And it just seems like not only is that effort not going to happen, but probably there's going to be conservatives back in charge of the government very, very shortly, and they're going to be doubling down on all the worst behaviors that are causing the crisis in the first place. And it's almost like the best case scenario is like an eco-fascism. Maybe Republicans eventually, when fucking Florida's underwater, they'll start to make some mild changes in the way things are done. But that's a lot of those mild changes are going to come along with like fucking death camps for the millions and refugees and migrants that are going to be trying to get into the country. Yeah, I'm in Chicago. It was 95 degrees a couple days ago. It's 40 now. Yeah, same here. Last weekend it was too hot to sleep. It was like 25 degrees at night last week, and today it was like really cold when I left the house. It's just like it's getting really ridiculous. Rich people in America literally fund both parties. You're telling me that would make any sense if you weren't paying one of the parties to lose? It maybe, yeah, but I do think there's still a difference in ideology between like conservatives and liberals, in terms of like the social issues and stuff. Like I think there's a lot of these rich people are liberals, and they kind of expect the Democratic Party to kind of stand up for gay rights and to make these kind of marginal efforts to make life slightly better for people. I think there's rich people that believe that, and believe that like it makes them a good person if they support the corporate party that supports these positive things. I don't think all rich people have the exact, they have the same class interests, but they don't always agree about all these different things. Like there's still more liberal billionaires, there's conservative billionaires that have different ways of wanting to do things. Like I think there's liberals that want to do something about climate change that do, and they fund the Democratic Party, and they do want to solve climate change, and they do want to make some positive changes. But overall, their class interests are still aligned with both parties. And even if the bad guys get into power, they can then say like, it's too bad, but I'm still doing okay. So I can kind of feel bad about it, but then I'm going to go back to my private island, into my apocalypse bunker, and everything's going to be fine. People on the left in the US get rightfully queasy when we hear about these types of commissions because we just envision the Patriot Act. Whatever further crackdowns happen will obviously be on the left, using the far right as an example of the terror. I think you're probably right, Cape Codmunist. Yeah, or it's going to just turn into like funding the police more, funding more security at the Capitol, maybe like having a few consequences for some of the people that were involved, but none of the people that helped organize it, or none of the powerful people that helped promote this idea. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it anymore. In all honesty, I think if they were actually smart, and if they cared about like power, and if they wanted to just help try to destroy the Republican Party and hurt the Republican Party as much as possible, they could be doing that right now. But I don't even if they do manage to put this commission together, I don't think that's what it's going to be. Yeah, well, that's what Dan Box is. So Gravel Institute just said 11 GOP senators are currently out of town. Democrats could end the filibuster with a single vote. That's what Brian Butler from Crooked Media is saying. That's the kind of funny thing, is that you actually have like Democratic Party lifers and people that have been intensely loyal to the Democratic Party throughout their media careers. Even they're like, what are you doing? Like, even there's people like Brian Butler that are just like, what? With this outcome foreordained and Dems unwilling or unable to change the filibuster rules, surely they teed up the announcement of a special insurrection committee. Yes? And even he's like, what the fuck? What is going on? I don't know. That's kind of funny. It's kind of funny seeing like people like that start to lose it. Or look, Vox as well. Vox as well. Like, these people are not radicals, right? These are not leftists. These are like career liberals. Are Democrats sleepwalking towards democratic collapse? I'm not sure people appreciate how much danger we're in. Like, you have to admit, as scary of a situation this is for the United States, it is kind of funny seeing these people that have put their whole careers into the Democratic Party and apologizing for them and like making excuses for them. People being like, what are they doing? Why aren't they doing anything? It's actually kind of funny to see. Hold on, I'm just going to change the hello. Donald Trump may be out of Washington, but his spirit very much lives on in the party he left behind. This month, Republican congressional leaders Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell effectively quashed any chance of a bipartisan commission to investigate the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Who could have predicted? Who could have predicted that they wouldn't do that? It's part of a much broader trend in Republican politics to double down on the Trumpist legacy, like the recent purging of Liz Cheney or the steadfast opposition to voting rights. The GOP has gone all in on Trump as in a revolt against democracy. The direction of the GOP poses an enormous challenge for the Democrats. How do you deal with an opposition party that is strategically committed to undermining core democratic institutions? And more importantly, more urgently, what are the consequences of not reforming those institutions before they've been dismantled? As it stands, Democrats and progressive activists for democratic reform have coalesced around H.R. 1, a bill passed by House Democrats that would, among other things, end partisan gerrymandering and create a national system for automatic voter registration. But the prospects of H.R. 1 becoming law are slim, mostly because key Democratic senators like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema won't break the filibuster to pass it. So this is also one of the funny things about Biden, right? It's like, Jack, I'm going to work with Republicans. The spell's going to break. In America. Listen, Jack. My dad used to tell me, Joey, the fever, when you're sick, you gotta sweat out the fever, and once it's sweat out, you can move forward. You're gonna get better. And I've almost sweat out the fever, and the fever's gone, and now we gotta start. We're gonna in America. This is America. We don't. And it's like, this is what he premised his whole campaign on this. And not only will Republicans not work with him, but his own goddamn party is not working with him. It's kind of amazing. It is kind of amazing. I did see that AOC Bowman and Tlaib voted president on a police funding bill. Yeah. Sucks. I don't know what to do. In all honesty, like, I sort of understood the strategy of the first couple of months of this, being nice to the new administration. And if you're like a progressive member of Congress that doesn't have a lot of power, and you're trying to like get stuff you want passed by, playing nice, I sort of understood that. But like at a certain point, there's no more excuse anymore. Like I'll admit that it's like, okay, try and see if they're actually learning the lessons, see if they're going to do any of this stuff for real. Play nice. But it's like we're past the point now where it's clear what's going on. I'm convinced that AOC is an op. I don't think AOC is an op. I just think she's a social democrat. And there are real limits to what that means. If you're not really willing to challenge power in any way. Like, I don't think she's an op. And this is part of just me being older, I think, and seeing like the Democratic Party now compared to where it was 10 years ago. Having someone like AOC is like, you couldn't even imagine having someone like AOC 10, 15 years ago. So in many ways, it's a step in the right direction. But the idea that she's going to be like, I don't know, it's the vanguard of some kind of revolution or anything like that. No, she's a fucking social democrat, member of the Democratic Party, and is being changed by that system more than she's actually changing the system. I think like backing Bernie was pretty impressive. Backing Bernie, like she even had an excuse not to. After Bernie had a heart attack, it looked like his campaign was probably finished. And backing Bernie was kind of a power play. Like that was her power play to try and like actually wield some serious influence in the Democratic Party. And they got fucking owned and it didn't work. So I do understand to a certain extent that she doesn't have the power that I think people think that she does. But at the same time, she's not completely powerless as well. And also you can't just do this strategy of like, oh, we're being nice to the new administration in the hopes that we're going to get stuff in return, when it becomes clear that that's not fucking working out. Yeah, this is just how suck Dems are. She likes the apartment in DC. She likes the magazine shoots. She likes her new clothes. She likes her government health care. Yeah. That's it. I think there's been a huge amount of progress just having people. It's cool. It's good having people like AOC in Congress. I mean, it's better than what it was 10 years ago, for sure. But you're seeing the limits of like what that means, I think. I want to keep reading this piece though, because this piece is funny to me, because it's very funny seeing like Crooked Media and Vox, these people with very strong ties to the liberal establishment of the Democratic Party, start to get pretty nervous about this and start to point out the stuff that we've all this dumb shitheads have been saying for like fucking years about this. Because remember, like when Bernie was running, if Bernie had won that campaign, he'd be faced with the same problems. He'd be faced with the very same problems, where Joe Manchin would be blocking Bernie's Medicare for All bill. He'd be blocking all the good stuff that people want to do. That was the whole idea behind Bernie, though. Not that it was going to be like an easy thing to pass this stuff, but he at least recognized that there was roadblocks within the Democratic Party that were going to be blocking these things, and he had sort of a plan to at least try to push back against that. Like he was going to be. What I haven't seen Joe Biden say one fucking word about Joe Manchin. You have one guy in your party that's blocking your agenda from passing. That's your whole legacy. And Biden hasn't said one goddamn word about it. I think Kamala Harris had some like mild tepid criticisms of it like 2 months ago. What have we heard since then? Nothing. And Bernie's whole idea was like he was going to actually try and like force these people to do what he wanted and have rallies, have rallies in West Virginia and bring people there and to pressure Joe Manchin, have millions of people calling Joe Manchin's office, try and make Joe Manchin's life a living hell so you can like pass an agenda, or at least point out to voters that like, listen, I'm being blocked by my own party, so we have to replace these people if you want to pass the agenda that I want. That was the difference between what Bernie was proposing and like what these other proposals are. He actually had a vague plan. It might not have even worked, but at least he had a plan to confront this. And right now, Biden there just doesn't seem to be any plan. Back in 2018, I spoke with Roosevelt University political scientist David Ferris about his book, It's Time to Fight Dirty. It's an interesting idea. His argument then was that Democrats had to play constitutional hardball and basically do whatever was necessary to win. The situation today is even more dire than it was in 2018. I'm not sure people appreciate how much danger we're in, Ferris wrote in a recent Twitter thread. If Republicans succeed in rigging the rules to take the presidency in 2024, they will crack this country in half. I reached out to Ferris again to talk about what the options are if Democrats fail to pass democracy reform in the Senate. There aren't many, and if he thinks the Democrats are sleepwalking, this is the question: are they sleepwalking into it, or are they just like fully aware of what's happening? There seems to be a split on this in the chat. I go back and forth. I think some people are aware of this. I think some of them are just stupid. I don't know. It's hard not to like think that this is intentional, though, after a certain point. Into a serious political crisis if they don't find a way to pass major democratic reforms in the next year or two. You said we're at a very dangerous moment in American history back in 2018. The situation seems worse now. Trump is gone, but over the last year or so, the Republican Party has taken an explicit turn against democracy itself. My current level of concern... What's your level of concern? My current level of concern is exploring countries to move to after 2024. I'm deeply concerned about the direction that the Republican Party has taken, especially over the last year or so. And it's been 20 years of this now. I mean, look at the 2000 election. The fucking George Bush election, who's a liberal hero now. This is what the Republican Party has been for over 2 decades. And they're still... in 2021, kind of being like, I'm not sure these Republicans are really serious about their commitment to bipartisan reform. It's like, welcome, David. Welcome aboard. Things were bad in 2018, but the basic problem in 2018 was that we had structural factors working against the Democrats, and you had a Republican Party that was fundamentally trying to keep people from voting. The most destructive thing that Trump did on his way out the door was he took the Republicans' waning commitment to democracy and he weaponized it. And he made it much worse to the point where I think that a good deal of rank-and-file Republican voters simply don't believe that Democrats can win a legitimate election. And if Democrats do win an election, it has to be fraudulent. So 2020 felt like a test run. The plot to overturn the 2020 election never had a real chance of working without some external intervention like a military coup or something like that, which I never thought was particularly likely, but the institutional path that they pursued to steal the election failed because they didn't control Congress and they didn't control the right governorships in the right places. So I worry complacency is set in the Democratic side. People are lulled into thinking things are normal and fine because Biden's approval ratings are good. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not going to read this whole thing. It is kind of funny. It is kind of funny to me, though, that they're starting to like grasp. These like Democratic Party guys are starting to realize like, oh shit. Like we're pointing out, they have the votes right now. They could end the filibuster right now. They could end the filibuster today, right now, and then they could ram through the PRO Act and that Voting Rights Act. They could fucking do a commission in the Senate to look at this January 6th stuff and expel Marjorie Taylor Greene and expel fucking Gates and expel all these psychos that were involved in egging this on. They could do this right now. All of this is just speaking into the ether, to be honest. I mean, we all know it needs to be done. We know the politicians will not do it. It certainly does kind of seem like that, doesn't it? Happy Friday, Dr. Awesome. Hello. I don't think anyone has the levers of power is interested in the long-term stability of the American project, fully anticipating balkanization. Yeah, I do. It does kind of appear right now that America's pretty much teetering on the brink of collapse in the ways that we understand like what America is. And that was kind of what Bernie was all about. I think for me, and I think for a lot of people who don't want America to like descend into this fucking extremely dark territory, which is where it's looking like it's going right now, Bernie was like the only possibility of preventing that. And even that wasn't a guarantee, but it was still like the only possibility. And when Biden won, I kind of wanted to believe that maybe just out of purely cynical self-interest, they were going to do what was necessary because they could just, at least some people clearly within the Democratic Party establishment get this, right? Not like weird leftists or whoever, but people in the Democratic Party establishment, people close to the Democratic Party establishment, the liberal establishment, they do understand this. Like we're seeing from the crooked medias and the Vox articles that are like starting to freak out about this. People do get this. So I thought just out of purely like cynicism, purely like a willingness to like hold on to power, they'd maybe grasp this, but it just doesn't appear that that's what's happening. All they care about a corporate interest. The two-party system makes sure that all that is under check. The moment you're like, ooh, Republicans, you're like, the Dems are better than nothing, at least. And this endless loop of the status quo shifting more and more into an economically right-wing system. Yeah, that's right. And Sean Meat, this is true as well. Like, I understood he was bought and paid for. Like, we all understood that Joe Biden's like a fucking basically a right-wing conservative. Maybe not like a far-right fucking fascist lunatic like a lot of the people that are part of the conservative movement in America now. I have to admit, I assume there'd be more pushback against Republican fascism. It really is pretty amazing. Yeah, the ratchet effect. That's right. Or like the fucking Supreme Court. Not like, listen, remember the stuff about the Supreme Court? Like, should we talk about like expanding the Supreme Court? Should we talk about like anything, doing anything? Maybe making DC a state? Not only are they not doing that, but fucking one of the last remaining liberal justices, Breyer, what's up with that? He doesn't seem like he's planning on retiring anytime soon. Like, not only are they not expanding the court, but they're very likely about to hand off another Supreme Court seat to the conservative movement. Like, it's truly amazing. It's like, I don't even know what to make of it. They could tomorrow, they could nuke the filibuster, pass H.R. 1, grant statehood to D.C. and Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico, I think, is contentious because we don't even know if Puerto Ricans want to be part of America, and perhaps that would be better if they weren't. So I think it's a little like premature to be like, yeah, grant Puerto Rican statehood. Enlarge the federal judiciary. It seems like none of this is happening unless Dems buck history by enlarging their Senate majority in 2022. This is not going to happen. This is not happening. 0% chance that this happens. Enlarging their Senate majority. No. And again, these are not online leftists. These are like liberals that have spent their whole lives apologizing for this party. That are starting to be like, what? What's going on here, guys? So it's scary. It's scary for the whole world because America's the global superpower. America fucking controls the whole world economically. The American military is all over the world, the most nuclear fucking weapons you could of any country, any nation. The ability to pretty much blow up the whole world many times over. It's scary for everyone to see this kind of happen, and especially in America, especially if you're in like one of these red states as well. But you also kind of have to laugh because it is a little bit funny to see these people start to be like, hey, seems like we might be in a bit of it's that Ralph Wiggum "I'm in danger" meme. It's like these prominent liberals are starting to do that now.